Okay, YouTube says I'm live, so I'm going to assume. YouTube says I'm live, so I'm going to assume I'm here. This is not really the, the screen that I wanted to be visible at the moment. Let's go back here. Let's see. What did I entitle this stream again? This is that kind of day. Oh yeah, a wilderness die, right? Workshopping a wilderness die. What do I mean? What do I mean by the wilderness die? So I know that something people enjoy about some of the modern takes on dungeon crawling is the overloading. We'll call it overloading the encounter die. It really shouldn't even be called that. I mean, in some ways it's what it is, but in other ways it's not, because the idea here is, to the best of my understanding, my recollection, where the overloading the encounter die comes from, the concept is from having a die that you roll every turn. Hey, Ian, a wilderness die from the Hex guy. That's a great way to put it. Having a die you roll every turn, so that in the dungeon, you can get into a habit, a practice, if you will, of every turn, roll a die. Turn, roll a die. And then it takes away some of the accounting. For example, with light, instead of saying, okay, every 6 turns, I need to remind the party that their light's gone out, assuming they're using a torch. And then, but if it's a lantern, then it's so many other turns. So you have all these little tick marks. I even made a cheat sheet for Old School Essentials, really just kind of a generic OSR one that showed sort of the clock of, if you take an hour and you cut it up into the 6, 10-minute dungeon crawling turns, how different things will trigger on which turn you're on. But I will be the first to admit that can be, I don't think it's super onerous to do, and people have done it and continue to do it using that kind of just, hey, what turn am I on kind of thing. But another way to do it, one that I think has been popular, is to simplify it all and say, look, I don't want to do one thing on turn 2 and do a different thing on turn 3 and then go back on turn 4 and then do another thing on turn 6. I just want to do something every turn, because it is going to be easier to remember. It is going to be easier to get into that rhythm of, all right, roll, do something, roll, right? Now, the issue that I've had with that in the past, and it's one of the things, it's not really a big deal. Nothing is a big deal. If you like to use your overloaded and counter dies or underclock or whatever variants, and this is nothing game breaking. People have had amazing times doing whatever mechanism they want to use. What I don't like about those is that you can end up with really random fluctuations of events. It may not happen at all for you, but someone can say, well, I think I pointed out in one of the streams that, if you have a 1 in 6 chance of something happening, you roll 2 ones in a row, you're getting that event back to back. So, okay, I rolled a 6. Oh, your torch goes out. Okay, I light another torch. Then the next turn, you rolled again. We rolled a 6. Okay, your light goes out. And there are multiple ways to handle this sort of thing. It's certainly not a deal breaker in any sense, but I tend not to like that, because as a player, to me, there's so much stuff that's random in a dungeon or in any circumstance. I like that there's some things, hey, I can count on. I can count on, you know what? My torch is going to be lit for an hour. And that probably doesn't even make sense if we're talking in some kind of real world. I'm sure whatever torches are made of, I mean, who has the industrial process down to making torches? Probably in reality, torches don't last 60 minutes, right? They last some amount of minutes, which actually, if you want to look at a verisimilitude, how the world might really work, probably the overloaded die actually does a better job, because you might have a crappy torch and it goes out in 10 minutes because it stinks, because it got wet, because the tar came loose, whatever happened, right? But we just say, for simplicity, we're going to make it an hour. But knowing that it's an hour, I think, means that as a player, I can count on it. I got enough stuff random that's happening. I don't necessarily need this other element. But I think GMs like it. I think that from a dungeon master, from a GM, from a referee perspective, I think we eat this stuff up. All this stuff can happen. You in the middle, you're like with I guess Shadow Dark is an example. You have that real time clock, so you could be in the middle of combat and your torch could go out. It's like, well, you could do that too. You might have to tweak the rule, maybe not buy the book, because it's going full ticks, but you could certainly have that last tick where it's sputtering. And I've had a situation in the home game I was running where the lantern got dropped in the middle of combat, and so they had this mad dash of trying to beat the combat before the oil that they'd broken the lamp, the lantern, the oil went out. So you could still get these kind of things without it. But I'm not trying to throw shade if you like the Shadow Dark real time torch is fine. I'm just saying that that you could do things in many different ways. Now, I say all that. Hey, Brian Smith, I say all that as kind of prologue to can we do something similar in the wilderness? But I'm going to try to shade it towards diminishing or moderating that randomness. I want to try to get something down, and maybe it's not going to be quite as dead simple as how most of this sort of overload in the encounter die is. But can we get something in a similar vein so that, like in the dungeon, a GM can develop a practice, can develop a habit, a routine, a procedure that they can do every turn, and then but not do things which I think and remember all these things tend to just add difficulties. There's never one of these things on the on the overloaded die where you get something. It's always like, okay, one of these bad things is going to happen, which it's fine. The universe tends to be kind of against players anyway, particularly in the really both in what would we say the fantastic well no it's what do they call it the underworld, the mythic underworld certainly, and really the wilderness too. So it's not a huge deal. That's not saying that I'm going to put something really fun in there. I don't know, but that's the idea. So can we come up with a die so that we could create a procedure for GMs to roll every turn when they're in the wilderness, and that will be, I guess, fair, maybe as fair as we can kind of do, fair as we can make it, but not being really complicated, not having a whole bunch of gears, because that to me that kind of eliminates. I think one of the nice things about overloading the dice kind of is that it's simple and it's pretty clean and simple. If we have to add a whole bunch of things to get somewhere, it's probably not worth doing it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what we get. And this is what is this? Blood orange tangerine spindrift for the working man, which is almost done. And so I've got water and this ooh cool tie-dye ocean magic rubber cup. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a D. We're gonna start with D6. We'll see how far we get with a D6, and then we can go from there. I did pull up. Maybe I can shrink this in half. Let me see if I can do this. Can I do that and then that? So I started having this up because I opened up the expert set, but I'm going the wrong way. I'm scrolling the wrong way. I want to get to where it has about wilderness stuff, just in case I need it. I kind of know already the things. I mean, the thing is too. One of the things is that there's not as many variables generally in the wilderness. You're probably going to be moving by day, which means you're not using up a torch or something like that. That's not to say you can't go at night, but I find most times you're trying to camp at night, and unless you're in some kind of I don't know, pursuit, escape, high tension situation, you're generally going by day. So light isn't very much concern. We might we might keep something else in there in its place. We'll see. Let's see. So here we have adventure, and I'm in the expert book because we're using, we're talking hex crawly wilderness stuff. So that's why I'm looking here as opposed to basic, which doesn't have. I don't think basic says anything really about tromping around the wilderness. I think it just kind of leaves that as you're basically at the dungeon, which is pretty much what in Search in the Unknown, right? You're basically start at the doors of the dungeon. Then once you get to keep on the Borderlands, yeah, you have wilderness, but you're also not you're not leaving the hex, and they don't even use kind of hex mapping for it. So anyway, so let's see. So okay, so we have organizing the party. Okay, deciding where to go. We're not worried about that. Supply. So we'll do something like, yeah, we can. I'm just going to put supplies, which might be food, water, fuel. Is there, if someone has another supply that gets used that isn't fit into one of those buckets, more or less, let me know. But I'm not even saying probably this would be right. You consume a supply, but these are subject to change. I'm really just trying to spitball stuff, spitball a few things out on the page, and then we could see. One of the things also I wanted to kind of work in here is this concept. I think I'm going to call it staged. Staged. No, staged isn't the right word. What? How can I staggered? No. I'll leave staged in here for right now. So basically, the idea would be on one of these, and we might have some that are blank. I'm fine. Like the most of the overload and counter dice I've seen, and of course, different people see different ones. Often use the entire range of the dice on a 1, on a 2, on a 3, on a 4, right? And we can do that too. But I'm also fine if we have blanks on there, just depending. So the idea with the stage encounters, which I did talk about in another video somewhere, where was it? It was, I think, on my 4 tips. It kind of came up on the side on, where was it? I think it was, yeah, it might have been on here. I think I'll put the link. I'm just gonna call it staged encounters discussed briefly here. I think that's the right video. Okay. So basically, the idea is when you roll an encounter. So the idea with the staged, and it's because the idea is that the encounters happen in stages, that you can have stage 1. So I think the example I use in that video, I think, is a ghost. So in that video, I looked at a Bob the World Builder video that was about encounters, and I kind of looked at what he was saying, what his kind of advice was, and I sort of pivoted on that a little bit. And I think one of the things he had in his encounter table a ghost appearing 3 times, which is something you often see in encounter tables: a ghost, a ghost, a ghost. But I think, or no, so he had like a ghostly whisper. He had these phenomena associated with the ghost. Brian, Brian, what are we making here? Think overloaded encounter die, but for the wilderness. If you think of the dungeon overloaded kind of dungeon die or encounter die, but we're going to try it for the wilderness. That's where I'm headed, Brian. So in that video, while the world builder had his encounter table he was building, and he had something like ghostly moans, then maybe, and I'm making this up because I don't remember, then say a ghostly chill, and then the ghost. And these were, each one was a single entry on an encounter table. And my suggestion was, instead of having that, just have the ghost, but almost have 3 checkboxes next to it, or 3 stages, or whatever, that you go through each one. So the first time you roll the ghost encounter, you can look in your ghost entry and say, oh, it's ghostly whispers. So that's what you get. Then you roll it again, you look at the second checkbox, which says, oh, ghostly chills. You check that off. And then the third and final checkbox, and you could probably have multiples of these if you want, would be, okay, yeah, sure, right, the ghost. So you don't need to have your encounter table full of these different things. You just use the one encounter and you just check kind of which it is. So then there's a couple things we can use with that. So one, what it means is that if we have, so let me just add this. Let's say if we had something like this. Let me just say, so I'm just going to put in some things. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And just for simplicity, whoops, why did you do that? I didn't mean to do that. Why do you keep doing that to me? That's so weird. What are you doing, Ouija? Okay, there we go. So let's just say this, right? Counter, counter. There's our 6. And this, who knows? Maybe this will actually end up working, but get rid of these extra boxes. So now when you're looking at these two, you say, okay, if we're doing any dice, if I were to go to any dice and say, all right, well, we're rolling, we have a 33% chance because it appears twice, right? What are our chances of having an encounter in a given day? And one thing I don't like about the overloaded die is you're rolling it every turn. So not only is there you're updating the so there are two things going on. The odds might appear the same. So you might say, listen, if you're rolling your consume a supply, if we're saying that, okay, let me do it this way. If we're saying that every day in the wilderness are going to consume one supply, per person, you say, okay, now I'm rolling a die every turn, but we're going to roll 6 times, and there's a 6%, a 1 out of 6 chance each time. So therefore, more or less, you can say, well, that 1 out of 6 chance rolled 6 times is more or less equivalent. It's not quite, but close to 100% in over a day. Does that make sense? Right? We're saying you're turning 1 in 6. Absolutely, you're doing 1 out of 6 turns. To we're rolling a die every 6 turns. Now, of course, it's not exactly true. Maybe I should pull up any dice. It might be illustrative to go to any dice actually. All right, we can X this out. So if we have output, right? So there's our base chance, right? 16% chance. Let me see. Oh boy, so now I gotta remember. Oh, they did that. Okay. Basics dice highest. I know there's a highest. No. Dice sequences. What is it? Where is it? Is it? Let me see if I can just remember. It's something like highest one of. This is probably. Are you going to break, or did I remember? Okay. All right. I think this is correct. So if you roll 6 dice and the highest one is equal to 6, that's probably not actually what I want. Oh boy, looping. If you want any dice, do something multiple times for different values. No. Conditional blocks. This is going to turn into an any dice. I really just want maybe this. Oh, maybe this is what I want. Let me copy this one. Okay, this is probably better. This, I think, is actually what I want. What we want. It ain't just me. Count 6 in 66. Rolling 6s on 66. All right. Okay. So there's basically, it's about the same, actually. Right? Because if you 30, now it makes me want to. We've gone in any dice range. Named highest of 66. No, highest results. Okay, let me just see if this works. Okay, well, they are exactly the same. Okay, so I guess the calculations are about the same, but you can actually get multiples, which I guess gets to my point, right? So you might look at it and the you go from basically 1. Let's just do this. That count is greater than 1. And rolling more than 1 6. Right? So you have a you have a 26% chance 26% chance to get more than 1, which means that while for the most part this rolling 6 times in 6 turns, rolling once every turn for 6 turns is most likely going to give you 1. There's a chance it might give you 2. I mean, there's a chance it might give you 3, 4. Oh yeah, 4. I mean, it can't be. It's not a non-zero chance, but the chance get really low if you're rolling, um, you know, a 5, or if you're rolling 5 out of the 6 is really low chance. But there's even a not, this is a 5.36 gives you a greater than, that's better than a 1, and better than rolling a 20 on a 20-sided die. I mean, it's more than 5% chance of getting that, and of course, there's a good 20% chance that you'll get exactly 2, more or less. So this is kind of why when I say this overloaded dice, there's something that always holds me back a little bit. Like, but I don't, I'm not getting there. However, we could take advantage of this in those staged. Well, let me, maybe I can, oh yeah, I can do that. Hold on a second. Let's do something here. Let us seem to work. In a sense, and this is going to be just kind of rough, but we can kind of take advantage with these staged encounters of the bigger numbers. So what we could say is this staged encounter means, and when I was talking about it in the dungeon, I was kind of doing phenomena, which we could still do, right? But we can, so remember what will normally happen? We can, all right, let's hold on a minute. I don't know how to say staged because stage as a word doesn't really work, but let's just say let's give ourselves some distances. So we have kind of far, we can have a far distance, a near distance, and immediate distance. And each one of these can have, see, can I make it now? What is that? That's just blocks. I can't turn the, what does that do? Oh, I see. What's this do? Oh, create a checklist. Oh yeah, there we go. All right. Let me actually, oh shoot. I see. This is, I'm sorry for the disorganization. I'm trying to get my around my brain. Let's do a sample monster. All right, so if we had this sample monster, there we go. We could have something like this. Far. Oh, what do we call it? I don't know. Owlbear? Let's just say an owlbear. Far. We it would be, say, scat and or scat tracks and or Feathers or fur. Ogre skunk. Hey, Jason. I'm stumbling around trying to come up with a wilderness die, which would be sort of a like the overloaded dungeon die or overloaded encounter die, depending on what you've seen, but for the wilderness. Why is Discord lighting up? Oh, okay. So imagine we have this sample owlbear, and so we set these. We set these encounter stages. Well, feel free to hang out, Jason. Listen, thanks, or ignore. Just keep it on in the background. Just it would helps me with helps me with the numbers, whether you listen or not. No, I'm kidding. Hopefully, work isn't too onerous. So we have our sample. I'll give them a color. Our sample owlbear has some encounter stages. So the far would be scat, tracks, and or feathers. Near would be maybe a audible screech. I don't know. Did I spell screech wrong? I did. Immediate. It's the owlbear. Does this make sense what I'm showing? Let me know if it's not. All right. So in your bestiary, oops, I didn't mean to. Thank you. No. What did I do? How did I? Oh my gosh, Ouija, you're just a pain in my arse today. Just wanted to bold, but maybe I'm not. Maybe bolding is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh, I can bold. There we go. So why are you denying me? Okay. So in our owlbear stat block, all right, we get, and in fact, we could do something even more if we wanted to. We can add more in here. You can have these as many as you want, and you could probably get really. I'm gonna stay away from trying to overcomplicate things. I know, probably too late. But you could think about ranges. If you have a layer, how far away the layer, well, you can do that. Or you could even have a kind of a domain thing, like, oh, are you in the owlbear's range? Then maybe there's just some stuff you'll find like scat, tracks, or feathers or fur might just be around, and it doesn't really indicate much other than you've entered an owlbear's territory, which actually be kind of cool too. So we'll just keep it simple for now. So you have far, near, and immediate. So what happens is when you roll an encounter, and again, these are just pretty much placeholders, but if you roll an encounter, then you don't get right to the owlbear. What you do is you check off the one that happens first. So you go, oh, we rolled encounter the first time. What happens? You see scat, tracks, and or feathers or fur. Okay. Then, presuming the party stays in that area and the owlbear comes up again, then maybe you get the next one, which is, oh, you're more near. You get an audible screech or a kill site. Now, remember that there's going to be multiple. This is not an encounter table of one. So this is not that you're just on a railroaded journey towards the owlbear. It's just that, and you can also use context. Okay, you can use if the party says, well, we've seen scat and tracks and everything, and we're going to beeline out of here, then maybe you back up and say, okay, well, now the next time you might get another screech or you find some more. Right? You can. It doesn't have to be a one-way street of going down this list, but it can be. Context is king. But anyway, you might, you go down to, okay, this one, and this one, and oh, well, we have nothing left immediate, which means, so one of the things I was meant to say, and I probably just didn't get around to it in the right way, was that one of the other issues happens that I'm trying to deal with, or actually I did kind of get around to it, right? You can, when you're rolling the overloaded die, you can get encounters multiple times within your set. It's possible when you're rolling 6 dice, one every turn, that you could, if you were super lucky or unlucky, and of course, depending on what your odds are and your encounter die, get say an encounter 3 times in a row from the first turn. If you recall, in something like BX in the basic edition, when they're talking about dungeon crawling, you get basically, I think, a free turn the first turn in a dungeon, you don't roll for an encounter. You roll on that second turn, and then the encounter doesn't show up for the until the third turn. So you get a little bit of there's a buffer. You don't just get just have encounters run down. And you may want that. It's a different rhythm kind of thing. But by default, you kind of get this like, okay, we get a basically a free 10 minutes to get our feet wet. And then if an encounter, then we really get 20 minutes and the encounter's rolled. Then that third time, usually what I like to do is I've rolled it and now I'm starting to, oh, you're checking out the room and then you're hearing the screech or you're saying, okay, whatever. And then the third turn they show up sometime after. So you get a little buffer time. Same thing with torches. You light your torch, you got six turns before you have to deal with it. Whereas now you might have to waste time and whatever lighting multiple torches because just of bad luck. And while I don't necessarily mind, I'm not anti-luck. I think sometimes it can get to be too much. Seth Skorkowski has a How to Run Travel. Oh, I may have to watch that, Ian. Drop me a link to it on the Discord when we have a chance, and I'll check it out. I did run across someone else's video that I'm gonna do another one of these. Let me look at somebody else's advice and throw my 2 cents in there. So I might have to do that too. Okay. So now that we understand that, right? What do we want? What I'm suggesting is we kind of want to have some of that same. Let's give us a buffer zone. Let's give ourselves. Let's not have it be. And I don't want it to necessarily be super predictable, but at the same time, let's give some buffer. Let's give everything some breathing room. We're gonna have an encounter. It could happen because if I roll encounter and I roll the owl bear 3 times in a row, I could get that. But now my odds are, if we go back to any dice, see if I can. If we go back to any dice, so let's just say that I got to roll 5 or 6, and then let's say that owl bear is 6. I don't even know if I can do this, right? So we got to do. Let's just say for 1 die. So we want. I don't know, 1d6 equals, or sorry, greater than 4, and 1d6 equals 3. I think I got that right. So that's a 5.5% chance of rolling it once. But now if we have to do that 3 times, oh goodness. I don't even know what to do, but I guess you'd multiply it by 3, right? Because you have to do that. It's times each one has to be. So then it'd be, right, 5%. Would that be right? Someone can correct me at some point if I'm remembering correctly. No, it would be, sorry, 0.056 times 0.056 times 0.056. Will this even work? Will that do that? It didn't do it. All right, let's get rid of that error. If I come in here and I do that. Yeah, so you're talking the odds of getting the owl bear all the way would be a little bit over 1. No, yeah, see, that would be 10%. Yeah, it's like 1/10 of a percent, 20th of a percent. Brian says must be a busy time slot for travel related RPG content. Could be. And look, I put, hey, if on the main channel, I put out a video today, it had nothing to do with travel. But chance of going full owlbear. Well, here's what I'm suggesting. You can have encounter, and then you can encounter +1, which would mean that you actually do 2 of these. So we can add a little bit of variation in here and still have some pretty good structure. And I suppose if we wanted to, we could move some of these down. Let's see if we wanted to, we could do something like Um, well, I was gonna say, actually, I don't know if I want because that brings back that same thing. No, I think I just want. I think I want something like that. Now, the thing is, we'd have to figure out is we could make a rule. We could make a rule. So let's go distances. Distances. All right, so we have far edge of senses. I don't really. Gosh, I hate. I don't want. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it blank. But we could make a rule. Make a rule. Let me just. Let's do this way instead. We'll make some rules here. Some quick and, but I think will be quick and easy rules. Need is your in contact. Let's just say that in contact near in sensory range. So once you move past far, you're basically outside the. I can't really. I can't tell which one of these is bold or not. Why does it look so good in bold in that other one? And then in yellow, is it the fact that it's that listicle? That's really weird. Is it the color of this? If I change this color, will it? Huh. I don't know. Okay. So we will add, so watch this. So we can make a rule, right? So our rule, whoops, no. Wish there was a better way to do this. We can say surprise. Because I think the one thing that people would, the first thing people would say is, well, this method we're using eliminates what are you doing? All right, I'm just gonna leave that alone. Roll for surprise if encounter is near. If surprised, reduce distance to immediate. Not immediately, immediate. Okay. So does this make sense? So we can say that for the purposes of this wilderness die, we are going to use our checks. If we get a +1, we'll do 2. So imagine check, check. Or if you maybe did far, if you did far and then you get +1, you get to immediate. All right. Obviously, if you're already at immediate, there's nothing unless you wanted to have. We could have another one, which you could have ambush, which is basically it's there. If you wanted to have one more, and we could play around with that account. And like I said, you can, depending on, you might have a dragon. You might have a dragon. So let's switch this up. Let me just add. I add one more here. Oh, I really wanted you. All right, so you have something like this domain. So how do you know? Well, the first time maybe you just, and you don't. This might not even be a check mark. You just might want to have this noted. This could also be something that you get if you take a particular action, like, oh, if the party let's see if the oops, I know there's a shortcut for adding more. Scouting, right? On a successful scout, reveal the domain stage for one or more creatures in the Wolf's hex. Okay, so now we go for, okay, we got some different things here. We can start looking at some kind of our options. So we've got encounters, we've got a supply, food, water, fuel. You lose one, you could roll dice for that, or you can random, or even have the party decide what it is. Yeah, if you like to do that, like, oh, you guys, what is it? You had to use a few food, a fuel, or water. Like what did that entail? Oh, okay, could be your horse, or oh, I got sick, or oh, I was thirsty. I don't know, whatever. We met a beggar. I don't know, whatever it is. It also could be, lost, consumed, lost, whatever. Maybe it was spoiled, something went bad, it broke, blah blah blah. Had to Francis had to smoke on my six. Yeah, smoke him if you got him, and you did. So yes, and thanks Ian for the link. I will check it out later. One of the other things we have right in the classic. Where are we? Did I go the wrong way? Hey, Krister. Actually, no. I think I'm looking in the wrong spot. Because I was looking at the player facing stuff, and what we want is more the GM stuff. Actually, back here. There we go. Wandering creatures. Here we go. So remember, when you get lost, they're rolling every day, once per day. And I don't think they mean half a day. I think they mean one day, 24 hours. Oh, I suppose I should have. That's another thing I can put up here. We need, what I've been liking, and, obviously you can come up with your own. So we'll do our wilderness turns. And I use different names. I'm just using wilderness turns right now. I've been enjoying 3 hour, if you want to call them watches, which gives you a nice 8 watches per day, 4 day watches, 4 night watches. You can add seasonal variants. If you want to have summer be a watch, 3 day watches and 5 night watch, you can. I like that it gets a little bit more. Some people like to just do kind of like some very broad ones, which I think is fine. You do whatever works, but I think this is a nice number because I feel like it a little bit of that kind of enough granularity where you feel like you have multiple options to do things during a particular daylight or night cycle or any part of it, and it also gives you a little bit to play around with. Like, oh, in the spring, maybe you could take 2. Oh, in the winter, I mean, depending where you are, obviously, maybe you only have 2 watches that are really during day. Also, how are you doing daylight, night? Do you want to have just day and night, or do you want to have day and kind of dusk and night? So you could say, oh, we have this much dusk, this much day, dusk on either side of day, night. You could play around with all that stuff. But anyway, I just like that number, but feel free to throw whatever numbers you're in there. But I figure so you're going to be rolling, right? So we're rolling it. This thing rolled once per wilderness turn. So this is to get back to the idea. We want to roll it once per wilderness turn so that you can get in that rhythm of just every turn, the party's deciding what to do or continuing on, you get to roll. And you don't have to worry about Did I roll it already? Should I roll it earlier? Do I roll it later? I just roll it. So let's see. So you consume, yeah, so nothing, nothing, nothing. Well, we need to fill in those nothings because we do have lost, ability to get lost, but we also want it to be, because remember, this is happening once per day. So it's a 1 in 6 chance over 24 hours versus some chance every hour, which is like, I don't know. I think I probably get too into the weeds on this stuff, but I think it does matter. I think not that it makes for a different experience if you have in a day of travel. Let's say you're doing 8 hours or 9 hours, whatever, of travel. So 9 hours of travel. So 3 turns, three of these wilderness turns, right? Or I'm going back and forth between watches and turns. Let me just take out watches because 8 be be consistent. Each of those turns you're rolling. So if I'm rolling Swarm Jones, you have a 50% chance just rolling once per day. But if I'm rolling once an hour or once every turn, that's a lot more. And that could be what you desire. It could be what you want. How do you want to challenge players with the wilderness? That's fine. But I'd like to get. It doesn't have to be the same. I don't care if it's off or if we're a little bit off, but I want to get in that same kind of range. And plus, it just means that just from here's a tool that you can use for your game. It means if I'm roughly compatible more or less with this, it means I'll be roughly compatible with a bunch of other stuff. That's kind of one of the nice things of having, BX or any kind of game is kind of a very a touchstone for a broad spectrum of games. That if I don't need to have Dolmenwood OSE and all these games and check against every one of them. I can say, hey, if I can just get it in the neighborhood of BX, then basically I'll know that I'll be pretty close to a bunch of games who may themselves be a little bit variant from BX, but are going to be kind of close, which is nice. And if it had been, it doesn't necessarily have to be BX. If it had been first edition, it would have a similar effect, whatever, right? It's just the fact that you have this kind of common, we all just kind of keep this in mind. So I want to keep like what BX has in mind because it just makes it kind of easy for me anyway. So if I'm rolling this, so what can we do? So we have these encounter stages. Could we have lost stages, navigation stages? I think we could. I think we could. And those stages could be let's see. Wandering. I mean, I guess I gotta have to come up with words, but wandering is kind of like you're drifting, maybe, or losing course. Uh, what's the lift drifting? Oh, I spelled it wrong. I'll fix that in a minute. Losing course, lost. All right. So if we have 3 drifting, kind of slightly diverging from the chosen path, easily corrected if noticed. Diverging more seriously from the chosen path. What's the word I'm looking for? What is it when you're oh yeah. Must reorient to correct. lost position and direction, unknown or mistaken. Do these make sense? Let me know. No. Make it red, even though it's... And, these words, words and phrases, everything's subject to change, of course. So now we can have these stages, right? Drifting, losing course, or lost. And you can use these numbers. If you're in grasslands, your first one would go drifting. So if we were to take some terrain, oh, well, I'm going to need to. I'll watch this. We'll do this. So, okay. So first of all, let's give this a color. And we'll call this, sample terrain, grasslands. I can now add some things here and say drift, of course, and then lost. So in other words, if you're in this terrain, you would go through and you wouldn't have this as check marks. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, you could, but basically you have to roll 3 times to get lost. Check. Right. Now we can compare this, losing words, to some desert, which might just have one thing, which just is lost. And then we might have can change the color, go one of these gray ones for mountains. Should have lost, but then also have losing course. Something like that. So we can say, okay, if depending on, it's kind of how lost are you? And then the actions. So here we go. So if you're wondering, well, what difference does it make, right? Well, why do we have these 3? Whatever. So we can talk about navigation. And we can say something like skilled navigator. And that can be defined however you want. So you could say, rangers are skilled navigators, whatever. You could use a different word if they're a pathfinder, wayfinder, whatever. But maybe we say, hey, if you got that skill in it and you're actually navigating, we'll automatically correct a drift course if navigating. Like if they're in charge of navigating and they're skilled, then if all you do is have an adrift course, you're adrift, that's fine, right? They'll reduce it. Right? And I think if you want to put this in kind of shadow dark terms, which I kind of like, saying, hey, it reduces it by 1. It goes like you're going adrift. Oh, you got skilled navigate, falls off. If you lose course, then maybe you go to adrift. We'll correct. What would we call it? What would be? Maybe we'll just call it. Maybe let's do that instead of me talking about maybe doing it. Navigation issues by 1 step. Spending a turn to reorient will correct navigation issues by one step. And then we can also talk about, well, what are the effects? Like, what does it mean you're losing course? Well, we have these X, as in BX has these. We could probably do something similar. I think they have an actually, I was going to say, don't they have one where it actually tells you the rolling the dice or no? Well, let's just, we'll throw that in here. So we can say something like, well, let me put this, where can I put this? Let's put it up here. That maybe, do I have shapes? I can do kind of shapes. I think I have the drawing one, right? So if we go, and we have, actually, no, I don't want to do that. Hold on, sorry. Let's erase. All right. Why are you not erasing? There we go. So let's see. I want to do, no, we'll do this. I want to go. So if this is your direction, we could have 3, 4 to 6. Let's see. Hold on a minute. No, okay. Okay. Yucca, yucca, yucca. What am I doing? Hide drawings? No, I don't want to hide the drawings. I want to, let me turn that off. I want to, I forget how you can grab. Oh, there it is. Can I drop this stuff in here? No, I can't. Okay, so we put that there, and then we're going to call this. This will be if we are, this is losing course. I'm going to call it losing course. Lost might look like any, that could be you're going any which way. So if we repeated this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oof. These are some terrible looking numbers. 5, and could I do 6? And then lose down a little bit more. And then we can say that if we're just adrift, assuming this is our course, we might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we can even change. We can make it like 2 to 5. So that's mostly going the right way. Does that make sense? So basically, we can mechanize these 3 steps, and we can also which might actually work, just in terms of, I think what can happen is you go from kind of you're on course to you're lost, and like, what does it mean? Whereas now we have some degrees of getting lost, and those degrees of getting lost also correspond to the terrain you're in. So that the more difficult terrain, your jungles and your swamps, you can have your own, right? But per BX, your jungles and your swamps, they're gonna take you multiple steps. Yeah, I can. Where's my? So these steps kind of correspond here. Am I making sense? Am I coming in clear so that these can refer to these steps? So if you're first time you roll up lost in the clear grassland, you're just going to be adrift, which means yeah, you have a third. You have a again. We could probably change these. So you have a maybe I probably will change these. Let's fix that. So let's just say that if you are only adrift, we can say that maybe we do something like that. You're mostly going there, but remember these are cumulative rolls. So you're rolling these every turn. So once you start going adrift, maybe you go adrift and you're still going in the right direction, but you're still going to have multiple opportunities in a day to kind of end up curving off. So you can end up using this example. If you're adrift, first time you're adrift here, you go, oh yeah, here, okay, but then oops, nope, we end up this way, or kind of this, like that, right? You can, if you're losing, then it's like you're. I mean, I suppose I could put something like one. I could probably make this 1 to 2, 2 to 3 to 4, 5 to 6. So you have a maybe that's even a better one. You can make it more fair. So we go 1 to 2. This becomes 3, 4. This becomes 5, 6. Right. So then that next level, maybe you end up like that. Oop, 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 kind of thing. Or maybe you don't. You could end up doing this. This can also happen here. You can also still go straight and then end up curving, but there's a more of a chance of variance, and there's more variance likely to happen because you're rolling multiple times. And of course, if you're lost, you could that's where you could be going any direction. I suppose we could spread these out even more, though. Um, Unfortunately, I like doing things with six-sided dice. I'm kind of into six-sided dice. I've used some different die shapes. You can get some different distributions. In this case, I could have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 could also work. And you get kind of similar things. Maybe I'll do that. Let's oh, this is my brain. This is my brain without drugs. I could do something like this. So you get 1, 6. I kind of like that better. So it's spreading, right? You're spreading out. You still have a chance, but now you're more likely to get lost. And then if you go around, you're more likely to get off course than you really. So we have these 3 stages, and like I said, depending on your terrain, you might go from to adrift, then losing course, then lost. Or if you're in the woods, you might go right to losing course and then lost. Or if you're in the swamp or jungle, you go straight to lost. Right. Everybody hanging with me still. It's all quiet on the northeastern front. And of course, we can have a little bit of fun by doing lost +1 and lost. And right. So you have a 30% chance of doing that. Well, actually, we want some nothing. I think I might have to take out the encounter +1s. I don't know. Analysis is like every turn you're either getting lost, you're consuming a supply, or nothing. So maybe I won't have I'll just have lost. I don't need lost. Then maybe nothing. Maybe we don't do the consuming a supply. Maybe we just take that out. That you could probably add that into your encounter table if you want to have that. Maybe I'll just do it like that. So you have a 16% chance of being lost, 33% chance of nothing, and then 33% chance of encounters, but we're rolling it a bunch of times. We are doing that. So I might need to moderate that again because I feel like that's still maybe too much. That might still be too much. Because remember, rolling it, we're the average encounter. Remember, so our average travel, we're going to be doing, you know, three rolls per. If you're traveling mostly your general, I guess we put a procedure. We add another. We have our daily procedure, our travel day procedure. We'd be, traveling 3 turns for a full day's march. Each turn, roll the wilderness die. So I'm thinking that maybe that's too much. So maybe we'll do nothing, 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 then encounter. And I'll figure out another way if we want to moderate that encounter. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm missing one. Uh-huh. I was missing. Nobody told me I was missing one of my dice. We got lost, nothing, nothing, nothing. Encounter. So you have basically a 50% chance of nothing. But then a 33% chance of encounter and a 1 in 6% chance of getting lost. But you're rolling 3 times. That might be okay. Actually, this might work. This might work. I might need to test it. But I feel like that's getting me, I think, fairly close. Too. So we roll 3 times on there. We got to roll a 6-sided die. Right? So that we have a 22%, 33% chance of nothing. This is after we roll lost. We roll lost. Oh no, so sorry for right. So this would work because we're also rolling. Ones is any one number, any one result on the 6-sided die is going to match it. So we have a 33% chance on any given turn of rolling lost. But then if we're in the grasslands, we might only become slightly lost, and then that's really only going to happen if we don't have a skilled navigator, which could also be an NPC. It's another thing you can hire for some kind of scout or a map or terrain, right? That would be another thing we could do. Right? A map reduces by issues by 1 step. Darkness or inclement weather increase issues by 1 step. So we can have fun coming up with all these different things, and of course you can come up with your own. Okay, what are the circumstances that can make it better or worse to go? I'll put a local map because if you just had some map of like, hey, we got a map of the continent, that's not helping you. A local map. Okay, so we have loss. Let's 30. Then we have nothing. Then encounter. I think that might work pretty well. All right, we're rolling once per day for encounters, and here are odds of. They're mostly 1 or 2, so it's kind of the same. Yeah. I might need to take out that. I might want to have nothing, 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 or maybe I'll do. Take one in the middle here. I don't really have one in the middle. Something like one supply, lost or consumed. And this was, to reiterate, supply was food, water, fuel. And now the only thing with this now is maybe I have to make another. I'll change. I'll add a little bit more to this surprise check. Roll for surprise. So this is one. This is why I think I've talked about this before. Wanting to do something with surprise, just because in BX it's kind of funky because you have we surprise on 4 or 5, but 4 to 6, but they only get surprised on a 6. So it's like, well, if you surprise, but then they're not surprised, it gets kind of choppy. Choppy. Roll for surprise. Let's see if I'll have to figure out thing. I think I'll need to figure out that because I like the idea of being able to bring it in closer, the encounter closer, and I like the idea of using the surprise roll because we're going to do that anyway for that. But the way surprise rolls work in something like BX is it's just a toggle. Surprised or not surprised? I suppose I could do something like this. Encounter roll oh, you know what? I gotta think about this because I'm thinking we don't know how many have been checked off. I like they did it if you're surprised. So do we roll 2 dice? I'd really like to roll. I'd really like. Oh man, I'm not sure. I'll have to figure it out. I mean, we could roll another die, but I'd like to try to do as few die. I'd like to do as few added rolls and things as possible, but I think I'm gonna have to suss that out a bit. I think I need to think more about that surprise aspect. I'd rather not have to totally redo how we're doing surprise. I'd rather be able to take surprise checks as they come. Let me go to the basic set really quick, and then I'll call it a stream, but come on. Where is surprise? Oh, do we have, you know what? Actually, surprise. They might have surprise here too. Determined. Roll. Once a counter has been determined, roll an 8-sided die. An 8-sided die should be rolled and the result checked under the appropriate terrain column. Oh, this is for, okay, that's for the creature, but not where's the distance? Do we have the distance? Castle encounters. Where is the distances bit? I might have to go back to adventures. I think. Designing wilderness. Honoring creatures in the dungeon. Yeah, traveling. Does it say about encounters? Okay, so maybe I need to go up. Adventure. Okay, here, back over here. Return. Rate. Becoming lost. Specialists. Here we go. Encounter. DM running monsters. Steve, yeah, I got that. Check surprise. 1d6. Initiative. Where's the distance? Party decides. Okay, so here, according to expert, okay, decide the direction of travel. Check to see if they become lost. Roll for wandering monsters. Check for the type and number appearing. Great. Okay, here we go. Check for the distance between monsters in the party. 4d6. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure that one out. I got to figure that one out because that's not giving me a lot to work with. Just 46. Because I was thinking, well, you could reduce the distance. I suppose what we could do is, if surprised, roll for if surprised. Hold on. If okay, let's hold on a minute. Let's do this. All right. If it's not a new encounter, if it's I guess an active encounter, reduce distance to immediate. That's fine. You've already checked something off. Got that. If it's a new encounter, roll 1d6 for distance. One to two is far. 3 to 4 is near. And then 5 will do immediate. And 6 is ambush. That's not bad. We got to roll right because if we think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep to basically the same amount of work you'd be putting in anyway. I'm not trying to create a lot more work. Trying to basically maybe just reinterpret, re-engineer a bit of the work, or do something differently. But I don't want to. I'm at least as far as I can help it. I'd like to avoid doing more work than we're doing already. So this case, okay. So you roll a surprise. If you're not surprised, you can kind of go down the route. I suppose you could just roll distance anyway, but I kind of like having these different things. And again, you can moderate that for monsters if you want to have different ones. But remember, it's that way of us spacing it. Remember, part of what I'm trying to do here is space out your encounters, so we're not getting a whole bunch more encounters than you would in another one, unless that's your intent. My intent is to more or less, because I don't play accordingly, because I usually like to do at least one roll per day, one roll per night. But I also kind of like to take into account the fact that you're moving hexes, which means you might be entering new terrain with new things. But that creates more checks, more rolls, which creates more encounters, which is not necessarily what I want. Sometimes it might be what I want, but not necessarily what I want. This way, I get to have my cake and eat it too a little bit. I can have this. I'm introducing things into the action. I have things to narrate. I'm not just checking off a box and nothing's happening. No, they're getting traces. They're getting things, what are happening, but you're going to be getting a bunch of these because you're probably going to be rolling. Even if you roll the encounter every turn, you're going to probably be rolling different monsters in your encounter. So you'll get different elements. And then if you're not surprised, you get that. If you're surprised, you might get, then it's more random what happens. And if you've already checked off some of these, then you just go to, maybe go to ambush. Or you can even say +2 or something, right? We could put this in more. Because I do kind of like the Shadow Dark system of sort of giving kind of labels to things and moving them up and down, which I think I've done in some things before, but they do it in a very systematic way, which I appreciate. So yeah, you could say, okay, we could reduce our distances by one, or increase or reduce distance by one step. So you can have maybe do 2 steps. We'll get some variability. So this is where I got so far. I kind of like what we've got. I like where we're at. I'll keep plugging away. We might come back to this tomorrow. We'll see. Let me know your thoughts on this if you have. I got to go walk the dog. We're dog sitting for my sister-in-law, who's away on her honeymoon. And we do kind of an interesting thing in this household with the dog. So I used to have 2 cats. Rest in peace, Bruce. We still have 1 cat, Betty, who you see sometimes behind me. She's not here right now, but I think on the video I put out today, she was conspicuously behind me, and at one point got up and left, which is what most people do when they are witness to my on video ramblings. So the dog can't stay with us in our apartment, but my mother-in-law lives in the building, lives right upstairs from us, and she doesn't have any pets. So the dog stays up with her, and then me or my wife, or me and my wife, my daughter, or whatever, some combination of one or two of us take the dog out for the walks and then take her back up to my mother-in-law's house where then the dog rests. But she's due for her mid-afternoon walk. So I will go walk the dog and ruminate on these things. Thanks so much for hanging out. Go check out that video on the main channel. I think I know I put more work into it. I don't know if it shows or not. I had some fun with it. One of the things when you're editing videos, it's kind of a chore. It's not a whole bunch of fun. Obviously, it's a job, and I would love to get to a point where I could spend money to say, here, somebody please do this job for me. But I don't, so I do it myself. But I do try to find some fun in doing it. I've had more fun lately with trying to pick up certain things, and I'm evolving my style, if you will. So let me know if you appreciate it or don't, which is totally fair. And we'll keep chugging along, and we'll talk to you later. So have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and see you round the bend. Bye now.